steel. So, would you say that in a way we have failed in our climate resilience, in our climate mitigation projects, due to the fact that there's been widespread corruption on these infrastructure projects?
Yes, the failure of oversight, the lack of structural integrity, the collapse, figuratively and literally speaking, of infrastructure because it's substandard, because of corruption. These are major and main causes of the loss of lives and livelihood. As I said, we could have avoided the loss of lives because we have the laws and we have the institutions if only we implemented the laws properly.
Yes, Mr. President. And imagine we spent so much money, hundreds of billions of pesos on particular infrastructure projects, Mr. President, na hindi naman gumagana. Like, for example, grabe pong ulan dun sa mountain areas of the Cordilleras. And most recently, we saw a video and pictures of the landslides that now have destroyed Cannon Road.
Yes.
A very large portion of Cannon Road is unpassable now due to the high level of rainfall. But the sad part about it, Mr. President, is if you look at the designs of the landslide mitigation facilities that they used, which is more commonly known as rock netting rock. Sasabi kayo, rock netting rock. Kasi yan ang hilig po ng mga politiko, maglagay ng rock netting. Isang maliit lang na ulan, or mabilis lang po na ulan ay nagigiba na. At may sinabi pa nga si Senator Ping Lacson sa akin na yung isang project na rock netting ginamit fish net. Hindi na po yung bakal na wire netting. So fish net na po. So I agree with your observation, together with my observation, that due to rapid or the increased corruption or the how do you say, kapalmuka na korupsyon ng ating ibang mga kababayan, ay natetengga itong mga projects na sisira at ultimately ang taong bayan ang kawawa. At sana naman po, Mr. President, don't you think, Mr. President, to the good sponsor, na hindi lamang pong insulto na nakakaya kayo ang itapon natin sa kanila, kundi dapat siguro kasuhan na sila para sa ganun ay hindi na po ito mangyayari muli. Would the lady sponsor agree with me on that observation? That strong words, yung mainit na pagsasalita, yung panginginsulto sa mga taong na gumagawa nitong mga I'd say katiwalian na ito na talagang apektadong taong bayan, hindi sapat. Would the good sponsor agree with me na hindi sapat ang magiging galit lamang at pagsabihan itong mga to, at dapat kasuhan natin itong mga to?
Mr. President, I agree with you. In fact, in my statement earlier, I mentioned about accountability. There must be accountability in the process. And I think I also mentioned it earlier in my speech in Filipino na hindi na sapat na hulaan lang natin, pero kailangan may managot. Yes. And that translates to accountability.
So this is a big part of your on your speech. It encompasses many topics like climate finance, climate change resilience and mitigation, etc., etc. And we cannot move forward as a nation, which is the number one most affected by climate change, if we do not clean up our acts, Mr. President. Because if we do not clean up our acts, para kaming sirang plaka. Because my first speech when I entered in 2007 was about climate change. My first ever speech as a senator. I was in that podium, pinag-usapan po namin pag-iiba po ng klima and what it can cost to our country as a climate change, it's one of the vulnerable countries for climate change, and even raised steps that we can do. For example, climate resilient classrooms. And ngayon po, Mr. President, yung isang classroom, and I'd like to quote, wala lang po Senator Bam, he's in his office, but Senator Bam and I were complaining that yung classroom building, one single detached classroom building, is 5 million pesos na po. But if it is built by a foundation, like the Philippine Chinese Chamber of Commerce, it's half. if you donate it and you pay for it, 2.5 million, makatayo ka na ng solid classroom. Yung masama pa dito, sa 5 million, Mr. President, parang substandard pa, walang banyo, nasisira yung kesame kaagad pag may malakas na hangin. And that is why we're so inefficient in utilizing our funds that panay utang po tayo ng utang na tayo po lahat ang magbabayad, pati ang ating mga apo at apo sa tuhod, at pumapasok na ito sa iilang tao lamang sa kanilang bulsa dahil sa korupsyon. As a matter of fact, I'm excited to hear the expose of Senator Ping Lacson. He said there's more than 67 contractor members of Congress. Dapat yan, ipalabas po natin yan, Mr. President, and we support him. We support him and the others who will come out with this list, because it is a blatant abuse of authority and a blatant, how do you say, tumayo kasi si Senator Ping, kaya na distract. Pero yung shameless ba? Very, very shameless. But I yield first to
With the
Senator
permission of Senator Legarda and Senator Zubiri.
Yes, with the permission of the two senators.
Wala
Senator Lacson.
po akong list ng congressmen na contractors. Meron lang akong numero. Kasi nanggaling din sa congressman yung 67 and counting. But I didn't ask for a list, so I don't have a list. I just want it clarified, Mr. President.
Okay.
Thank you, Senator Lacson.
We stand corrected, Mr. President. He has a number. Yeah, he has a number. And I think I would suggest to Senator Lacson, to my dear colleague in the minority, that when the hearings come about, maybe you can ask who are these people who win these contracts, and then who are these 67 or who are these contractors, and if they have familiar names, kasi we can compel the Securities and Exchange Commission to give the ownership structure of these companies. Malalaman din natin kung sino talaga itong mga sounds like. Kung yung pangalan ng congressman ay ganito, tapos yung pangalan ng contractor ay ganito, sounds like the same, baka kamag-anak po. Kaya dapat silipin natin po yan. Because there's a huge conflict of interest. That is the word that I was looking for. A conflict of interest which has never been seen in any other country, especially first world country, Mr. President. Yung mga Hapon naghahari-kiri, napapakamatay dahil sa isang shameful, action done by this person, nagpapakamatay na. Dito sa atin po, hindi, lalong yumayaman. Kaya, I feel for the lady senator. We have been talking about climate change from the very first day that climate change was put in the consciousness of the world by no other than Vice President Al Gore. But, paulit-ulit po ang plaka. Ika nga, tayo po'y paulit-ulit po nagsisigaw. Naggumawa na tayo ng hakbang. Pero lahat ng hakbang na ginagawa po natin, Mr. President, ay palpak. Kaya, I support the lady senator on her crusade. And I wish actually, Mr. President, if possible, if we can return back to her the Senate Committee on Climate Change, because she actually was the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Climate Change. Kasalanan ko po yun. Nung majority leader po ako, kinausap ako ni Senator Frank Drilon, ang minority leader. And he said, Migs, kung gagawa ka ng bagong committee, dapat mag-collapse ka ng iba. We have to rationalize our committees. Natatawa ang ating majority leader. That was the time when Senator Soto was still our Senate President. So I apologize to the lady senator that now she's back in the Senate. We no longer have the Climate Change Committee. That was really her baby. And she did so much work there that I'm appealing maybe one day we can return that committee back as a standing committee of the Senate, which is a standing committee, by the way, in the House of Representatives, and hopefully nominate her once again as the chair of the Climate Change Committee.
Thank you for mentioning that, Mr. President. It was in 2009. I was on my second term when I pleaded to the whole body to create the Senate Committee on Climate Change, because as I mentioned, and as you all very well know, climate change is not only an environmental issue. It is an overarching, it's an issue of national security. It's an issue of health and agriculture and livelihoods. And so it was an enlightened Senate in 2009 that created the Standing Committee on Climate Change. And I chaired it until my third term in 2019. And to my disappointment, my two good friends and allies, Senator Soto and Senator Zubiri, had abolished it and subsumed it under environment, which is not really an enlightened move. Because, as we all know, and I'll say it again, climate change is both agriculture and food, national security, education, and health. It should be a standalone committee. But then, committee or no committee, I stand before you to urge for urgent climate action. And I accept your apology.
Yes, that's why I'm apologizing, Mr. President, because now I realize the folly of our action, because really, there should be a standing committee of the Senate on climate change. And I fully support it if there will be a move to amend the rules later on, that we have one. The talent of this distinguished lady senator cannot be limited only to culture and arts, Mr. President. She's the chairman of the Culture and Arts Committee.
That's very important too.
No, it's very important.
Yes.
I don't want to belittle that. I'm just saying your talent should be more than just one committee.
Thank you. You've more than made up for the wrong decision you did in 2019.
And before I end my
Thank you, Mr.
before I
President.
end my interpellation, I just want to say the only thing that there may be climate change all over the world, umiiba yung klima sa buong mundo. But one thing with Senator Legarda, her beauty has not changed, Mr. President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Zubiri. Senator Pangilinan.
Yes, with the permission of Senator Zubiri, just a brief manifestation with the permission of the good
You have the
lady
floor.
Senator from Antigua. Yes, should a committee on climate change be restored or created by plenary? Perhaps one question that I'd like clarified is how then do we decide if the matter involves agriculture and climate change? Where will it be referred? So that the answer doesn't have to be done today. I just want that clarified, because there will be potentially conflicting referrals or conflicting jurisdictions rather, and therefore that has to be clarified. The answer doesn't have to be given today, but
I can answer it very easily. Thank you for that. If you backtrack in the archives in 2009, these were the same discussions, and you were a senator then. I recall that I stood on the floor and defended the necessity for a standing committee on climate change, understanding the issue very deeply, that it is more than an environmental, an agricultural, a health, a livelihood issue. And as we all know, there could be 2 or even 3 referrals in terms of our bills and resolutions, but it would depend on how the bill would be crafted and drafted. But there should be no territorial or turf issues here, because the issues are so complicated, at the same time so broad, that it could be discussed from the lens of climate or from the lens of agriculture, or even both, and many more sectors, Mr. President.
thank you for the clarification. I'd still like to get when. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
It's a question of which committee will have jurisdiction over a certain resolution, bill.
The old rules,
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pangilinan, Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President, before I make a motion to refer the privilege speech of Senator Legarda, I'd just like to commend Senator Legarda for being very consistent, as mentioned by Senator Zubiri. When climate change is not that sexy, hindi siya ganun ka-popular, but it is something that we really have to take in serious right now. Almost all the problems that we are facing now, flooding and other natural disasters, are caused by global warming and climate change. And that she has been very consistent. Every time she enters the room, she changes the climate of the Senate Hall. Pinababago po niya yung pinapainit niya po Just kidding. But